We've come to the end of section 5 of the Yoga Vasistha, and now we're at the beginning of section 6, Nirvana Prakaranam, which is the section dealing with liberation. It's the last section of the Yoga Vasistha, and it's in 2 parts. The translator of my edition, Swami Venkatesananda, has included a quote from Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi at the beginning of this section. He did this once before at the beginning of section 3, and this quote seems to follow on from it. I'm not going to read it because it's quite technical, and one wonders what the point of it is. I think I'll just read the second half of this quote, because I think the gist of it is contained there. So the first half is really about how the one apparently becomes many, and how it can realise its oneness again. And about halfway through he writes, when the mental consciousness, which is a reflection of the tangible aspect of pure consciousness, sees the world of matter, it is called mental world, mano, akasha. But when it sees the tangible aspect of pure consciousness, it is called total consciousness, cinmaya. That is why it is said, the mind is the cause of both bondage and liberation for man. That mind creates many illusions. And this is the choice that we've always had. We can identify with the world of matter, which curiously here is called the mental world, because we're only identifying with our notions of this world. And notions are mental. Or we can identify with pure consciousness, which is our essential awareness. And what is it that's doing this identifying? It's the attention. It's awareness in the form of the attention. It's the awareness which can move. It can identify with notions, or it can identify with itself. These are the choices we've got. If the secret truth mentioned above is ascertained by self-enquiry, this is how the multiplicity resolves itself back into one. So this is the secret truth. It's secret in the sense of subtle, overlooked. It's not secret in the sense that anybody's keeping it a secret. And so self-enquiry is the way. It is true that it is only possible for mature minds, not for immature ones. For the latter, repetition of a mantra under one's breath, japa, worship of images, breath control, pranayama, visualizing a pillar of light, and similar yogic and spiritual and religious practices have been prescribed. By those practices, people become mature and will then realize the self through the path of self-enquiry. So you can do other practices if you like, but the only way you're going to realize the self is through self-enquiry. And if you can't do that, if your mind's not behaving itself, then it's maybe a good idea to do some of these other practices. Now I wonder why the translator put this quote in here, and I suspect he might have noticed the prominence given to the practice of pranayama in some parts of the Yoga Vasistha. So this quote makes it quite clear that it's only through self-enquiry. You cannot realize the self through pranayama. It might happen. It might be that you're doing pranayama and you realize the self, but realizing the self can happen anytime, in any place. So it would just be a pure coincidence if it happened. And it's important to bear this in mind, because I think later on we'll be coming to some quite extensive sections on pranayama which seem to be promoting it. So there do seem to be interest within the Yoga Vasistha in promoting pranayama and some traditional yogic attitudes, and we need to be on our guard against them, because it's only self-enquiry that will get us there. You might be wondering, well, how can I be so sure about this? Because pranayama is something that you do. Otherwise it's like asking, how do you get to the top of that hill? Well, you follow the path up, you walk up the hill. And to ask yourself, well, how do you do that? How do you prepare yourself to walk up the hill? Well, you just walk up the hill. You either do it or you don't. You don't think about doing it. You don't think about all the preparation needed to do it. You just walk up the hill. And self-enquiry is like that. You either do it or you don't do it. And the way you do it is to turn the attention on itself. There's no secret to it. You transcend this conceptual mind. Now that sounds a little bit lofty, doesn't it? Transcending the conceptual mind. You probably spend most of your day transcending the conceptual mind. The conceptual mind is the mind that identifies with concepts. It's when the attention and the emotions really believes in the reality of its own notions. But when you're listening to music, the chances are you're not involved in your conceptual mind. When you're doing a drawing, the chances are you're not involved in your conceptual mind. When you're sitting just enjoying a view of the sea, the chances are you're not involved in your conceptual mind. And these are opportunities we've got to look at what's going on. We've gone beyond our conceptual mind in these situations. We just bring that awareness into focus. We don't think about it, we realize it. And we realize that everything is happening within that awareness, including notions about who I am, notions about awareness, notions about the world, notions about spirituality, thoughts, thinkings, concepts, all that's happening within awareness. This is self-enquiry. It's extremely simple, but when we talk about it, it comes across as very lofty and mysterious. It is lofty and mysterious, but it's also mundane and extremely accessible. So we just do it, and we don't make a big deal about it. We don't have to do years of yogic practices in order to practice self-enquiry. These things can become a huge process of procrastination. An excuse, in other words, for not doing it.